Arkansas again.
Hello.
Hi. Great, so we're gonna get started in just a minute. And just to let everyone know, we are gonna record this. And then we will also post the recording on our YouTube channel later. So if you wanna go back and reference it, it'll be there. Wow, people are from all over Kentucky. That's great. Okay, great. And Bob McFessel's here, great. Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the introduction. And actually, let me just hit, oh, it is recording. Okay, great. So hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Michelle Rassiopi. I'm the Program and Communication Manager for Docomomo US. And this is part of our Mission for Modernism series, which is a new series we just launched this year. And we are going to talk about the 6 steps to starting a Docomomo US chapter. And we just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us today and your interest in the chapter. So yeah, Liz, you can go ahead to the next slide. And then we want to thank our the Humanities New York, our organization, and the National Trust for Historic Preservation. They have supported this with the Mission for Modernism series with grant funding. So we just want to acknowledge our sponsors for this series. And I'm going to introduce our speakers and tell you a little bit about them, and then we will go ahead and get started. So first, our president-elect of our board, Bob McFessel, he's going to do a quick welcome. Bob is an activist architect with more than 30 years of experience in the planning and design of institutional, residential, and commercial projects. Many of those projects have been recognized for innovation and excellence in urban design, architecture, and preservation from professional and industry organizations, including AIA Dallas, Texas Society of Architects, Preservation Texas, and Preservation Dallas. He has served in a leadership role of many organizations involved with the quality and public awareness of the built environment, including Docomomo US, the Trinity Park Conservancy, the Trinity Commons Foundation, Texas Society of Architects, and AIA Dallas. So Bob is going to start us off in 1 second. And then I just want to introduce our other speakers. So Liz Waitakis, who is our executive director, is going to start off and give you the information about the basics of starting a chapter and what's involved. And Liz has been at Docomomo US for 10 years. She's responsible for the development of new programming, including the National Symposium, which is coming up this month, the Modernism in America Awards, and many other programs. She manages our advocacy efforts throughout the vast Docomomo US network and has spearheaded efforts to save the Ambassador Grill and UN Plaza Hotel lobby. She received her Master's of Science in Historic Preservation from Pratt Institute and previously worked in the nonprofit cultural and educational fields for more than a decade. And then we have our chapter representatives. Allison Chu works in Hawaii, and her experience is in forensic investigations of the building envelope and technical archival research, which combines 2 passions to develop a holistic approach to preservation planning. As an associate at Fung Associates, she engages with clients and owners to provide consultation on historic buildings involving renovation, rehabilitation, and compliance with state and federal guidelines. She is a current director of Docomomo US Hawaii and also a past president. And she's also a member of the Association for Preservation Technology International. And Hannah Simonson is the president of the Docomomo US Northern California chapter. She is an architectural historian and cultural resources planner at Page and Turnbull in San Francisco, and has been the president of the NOCA chapter since 2019. She received her Master's of Science in Historic Preservation at the University of Texas at Austin, and her thesis, Modern Diamond Heights, Dwellification and the Challenges of Preserving Modernist Redevelopment Resources in Diamond Heights, San Francisco, was awarded the Outstanding Thesis in Historic Preservation. Her research interests include modernist architecture and landscapes, brutalism, the 1970s, and issues of recent past preservation. And you can also follow the @Modern Diamond Heights Instagram, which she runs, which is really great. So definitely put in a plug for that. And so as you can see, we have a lot of experienced people here, and they are going to, I'm going to hand it over to Bob now, and they're going to get you started on the path to hopefully starting new chapters around the country. So thanks again, everyone. And Bob, we will hand it off to you.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. I will be brief, but I'd like to thank all of you who are here today for what you've already done for modern preservation and for Docomomo, just by your interest and your membership and your activism. But I also especially want to thank you for your interest in starting a new chapter. That's a big step. It's a critical one to our organization because we are very much dependent on our chapters for membership, for letting us know what's going on in terms of advocacy efforts, for leading tours, and the relationship between national and the chapters is a close one, and we are very excited when there's interest in starting new chapters. We have, I think, 16 chapters now. Ranging from Hawaii, which is as far west as we go, to New England, and from Washington down to Florida. Our newest chapters in Colorado. They're about 2 years old, I guess, maybe a year and a half. And we look forward to many more new chapters. We have a great panel today to help guide you through what is involved in starting a chapter. Liz Witaikas has been involved with starting a number of these chapters in her 10 years with Docomomo. Allison represents one of our newer chapters, the Hawaii chapter, which has been around about 4 or 5 years, and hosted one of our best symposiums 3 or 4 years ago. My blurriness on timing is because I feel like I lost a year, so I tend to add a year to everything. And then one of our older chapters, which is Northern California. They've been around as long as I've been involved with the organization, which is quite a while. So with that, again, I thank everyone. Please feel free to ask questions at any time. And again, we thank you for your interest. And I'm going to turn it over to Liz now to take us forward.
Thanks, Bob, for that introduction. I have control. All right. Everyone can see me now. I think, Bob, I stopped it from spotlighting you.
Thank you.
All right. So again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Probably many of you have reached out to Michelle or I asking about starting a Docomomo US chapter. And over the course of the last few years, I mean, we've really developed the information to share with all of you. But I think in these times where we are Zooming, it is really helpful to just get together face to face and then have, you know, a video that describes what it takes to start a Docomomo chapter. Hey, Michelle, as people come in, will you continue to let them in?
Yep, I'm doing it.
Thanks. So I'm going to go over a few things today. The first thing I'm going to go over is who we are. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we're structured. We'll move into programming and all of our advocacy efforts. And then we will actually get to the 6 steps to start a Docomomo chapter. So here you can see this is our mission statement. Docomomo US is dedicated to the preservation of modern architecture, landscape, and design through advocacy and education and documentation. We provide leadership and knowledge by demonstrating the importance of modern design principles, including the social context, technical merits, aesthetics, and setting of these important pieces of American history. And then just our values. So we are committed to the fundamental values and ethics, aesthetics, technological, and social of the modern movement, and the ways in which they were and continue to manifest in the built environment. The recognition that because change is inevitable, sensitive, adaptive reuse should be supported. We have a commitment to being a smart, inclusive national organization and a commitment to advocacy and education. So very often people ask me, you're Docomomo, why are you advocating for 80s buildings? Are you defined by how a building looks, the time period that it falls in? And the answer for Docomomo is a lot more nuanced. So when we're talking about modernism and what it is that we're preserving, this is really a tenet of our organization of that advocacy means preserving the innovation of modernism. And that would include social elements, the technical specifications, the aesthetics of those buildings, and the setting or the context. Modernism, as we all know, is sort of loose in the beginning and seems to be even looser at the end. So we've really tried to get away from setting dates for the work that we do. And just looking at some of the examples of what that means. So social considerations, this is Lou Kahn's Trenton Bathhouse in New Jersey. Technical, the GM Tech Dome in Michigan by Eero Saarinen. Of course, the iconic Glass House by Philip Johnson in New Canaan, Connecticut. And Sea Ranch in Northern California, Hannah's Domain by Charles Moore of MLTW. So why start a Docomomo chapter? So we believe Docomomo US provides a national presence, long-term stability for the organization. We lead national programs and a national network. Docomomo US offers chapters, a valuable national brand, a strong national and international network, coordinated programming, documentation services, and advocacy, shared administrative services, and coordinated fundraising. And we'll get into some more of exactly how it is that we are structured. So Docomomo US is actually the US chapter of Docomomo International. You can see here, this is from the Docomomo International website. There are some 70 Docomomo International chapters all over the world. This map does, however, sort of make me laugh because if you look at the United States, there's no dot. So when people say how many international chapters there are, it's a rough answer, but we are a chapter. And I think that's one of the really amazing reasons why to start a Docomomo chapter, because you are not just affiliated with other chapters in the United States, but you're also affiliated to all of these people all over the world. So if you're traveling or you have a question, if you have someone who is doing a research project, you know, this is a network that is close at hand. If you're in the Docomomo family, I'll also say Docomomo International has an in-person meeting every other year. Although it will be virtual this year, it was scheduled to be in Japan. Being present at one of the Docomomo International forums where everyone gets around a big table, sort of like the UN, I have got to say is one of the most thrilling experiences of being involved in Docomomo, is just seeing all of those people, and they have their little name cards that say which country they represent. And it really just speaks to the depth of what it is we do. So here in the United States, we are led by a board of directors of 16. This is a picture of Michelle and I, which represent our staff of 2. And then our board of 16. This was in New York. I think this was weeks before lockdown, when our office was at the Star at Lehigh building in Manhattan. Unfortunately, we are no longer in that building due to COVID, but we do get together 3 or 4 times a year, typically during the National Symposium, and then we'll have board meetings throughout the year, either electronically or in person. Just going over our current regional chapters, and this will go over chapters and what we call friend organizations, which we can talk about that difference in a minute. So just to highlight all of the areas where Docomomo is located, you can see we have an excellent showing on the East Coast, on the West Coast. The South is starting to fill in, certainly in the Midwest, Minnesota, Michigan. Whoops. See, that happens every time when you click through a slide like that. You don't know when you're at the end. So we still have, plenty of work to do. The number of chapters and friends, I believe, is at 18 right now. So we're definitely looking to add more voices and representation across the country. Just in terms of our programs, our main program is the National Symposium that Michelle said at the beginning of the call today, is taking place in 2 weeks from now. It will be virtual. It starts on May 25th. If you haven't registered, it will be probably our only virtual symposium, just because we really do love getting together and having that excuse to meet somewhere and to see some great architecture. But we have, I think I counted 52 speakers, including moderators. We're going to have 4 tours. We have this thing we're calling the Makers and Shakers Mart, which are local Chicago businesses that we're trying to highlight. Obviously, there's an economic impact when the symposium comes to a particular city. We always like to share some of the businesses that we love. I know when we were in Hawaii 2 years ago, we had really just some amazing locations for our event. So we will be featuring businesses in that way during the symposium. I skipped one again. The Modernism America Awards, we host this every year. It started, I think 6 or 7 years ago now. So every year we honor some of the best preservation projects in the country. We also acknowledge advocates. So even if a building is lost, we have an advocacy prize where someone really worked their tail off to try to save a building, and the result is not always as we would want it to be. And that picture at the top is Gunny Harbo, who is a founding member of Docomomo US, and Peter Meijer of our Oregon chapter. You can sort of see it's cropped out of the picture, but he's holding his award for the Portland building that he really led the advocacy for. The building still stands. It looks a lot different. I encourage you to Google the before and after photos of the Portland building if you want to see what they did to that. And also just talk about, we do a ton of advocacy. I could show probably just a whole PowerPoint presentation on all of the advocacy issues that we've worked on. This is a photo of an old school protest that we held a couple years back And I don't know if you can see him in the way in which we are looking at this Zoom presentation right now, but the way that I see it on my screen, behind our pictures is Bob Stern cradling the AT&T building, and he joined us for this advocacy effort. Our advocacy, we support international advocacy projects like the AT&T building that are nationally and internationally significant, postmodern, not always loved. We support local advocacy issues. Things do not necessarily need to be nationally significant for us to just share the work that our chapters are doing across the country. And just a last piece of programming, Docomomo US, one of our oldest programs is called Tour Day. All of our chapters participate in that event. It takes place typically the first Saturday of October, where Docomomo US and all of our chapters, partners, friends gather on one weekend or throughout the month of October to give a tour of modern sites. We also are now leading international travel tours, and this is an international trip. I think Brittany is actually on this call, and she is in this picture, that we led to Brazil 2 years ago, and here we're standing in front of Brasilia. All right, so that is really the background on Docomomo. So this is the nitty gritty and the meat of what it means to become a Docomomo US chapter. So what are the requirements? The first requirement, to hold at least 3 meetings in 1 year and keep track of the minutes of those meetings. And that is an element of the submission that you would remit back to our office. Maintain at least 10 active chapter members. Now, if you're here and you're interested in a chapter, I think I saw Kansas was on the list. Maybe you know 2 or 3 people who would also become chapter members, but you think, I don't know enough people to get to 10. We would actively work with you to identify perhaps people that are already members of Docomomo that live in your area, connect you to architectural firms that we know, connect to schools, architecture schools in the area. And more recently, that's really how starting a chapter really works. We have a few people who are really want to do this and they need some support, and we work together to make that happen. So all of that pressure would not be on you. So once you have your chapter members, you would be expected to elect a local board of directors. That can happen either towards the beginning, or that can actually happen towards the end. But there definitely needs to be a list of a group of people who have agreed to lead the chapter forward. Another big step in becoming a Docomomo chapter is to define the chapter's geographic area and begin writing a list of significant modern buildings within it. So one of the questions that will always come with a chapter is, should the chapter be statewide? Should it be more regional? And the answer is really up to the group of people. I will say that Zoom has made it a lot easier for people in a large state to get together for a meeting. But if you have a large state, let's take Texas, for example, which is a very large state. We have 3 chapters in the state of Texas. One 1, 2, 3. We don't have 4, right? I think we just have 3. So we have North Texas. So I can refresh my memory. North Texas, Mid Texas, and then Houston Mod, which is a friend organization. I should come back to that. If Texas was one state, there's no way someone from Houston is going to make a meeting that takes place in Dallas. And likewise, if there is a tour in Houston, someone from Dallas, I mean, they could go for that long drive, but typically all advocacy is local, and you want to keep your chapter as nimble and engaged as possible. So it's really, that is a big question for people starting a chapter. And I think I did see someone from our newest chapter from Colorado who really wrestled with that question of whether it would be a statewide geographic area. Outline a mission statement, really what it is that your chapter would like to do. You can certainly follow the example of Docomomo US. You can look at some of the other chapters, but that mission statement would be specific to your chapter. And then prepare bylaws that comply with the Docomomo US requirements for chapters. We do have a set of bylaws that we would share with you to use as a draft. We also, I believe, have bylaws from some of our other chapters to see how they have modified them. So those are the main the steps of becoming a chapter. I will just come back to the difference between a chapter and a friend organization. So a number of years ago, the group Houston Mod, very active in the Houston community for preservation and education in that area. They wanted to be affiliated with Docomomo, but obviously they already had an organization. There was no need for someone else to come in and create a Docomomo chapter. So we created a new entity, and it could have been Bob who created this idea, but we call them friend organizations. They are essentially a chapter, but they don't have Docomomo in their name. And we list them the same way we would list all of our chapters. We communicate with them exactly the same as all of the chapters, but they are an organization that had already existed. So if you're in an area where there is a similar organization whose mission is very much aligned with Docomomo, perhaps you wouldn't be creating a chapter, but you would be creating a friend organization. So once you have gone through the process of those 6 steps, we would then give the chapter provisional status. We would approve an official name. We would provide you with logos, graphic guidelines to follow. We would announce the chapter nationally. We are also more than happy to announce when you're having meetings, especially during the formation period, to get more people interested. Chapters are expected to open and maintain social media accounts. The creation of a website is optional. We do offer pages on our website for all of the chapters. Chapters must work to open a bank account, register with federal and state agencies as a charity, and begin to process to become a 501c3. So that is a considerable amount of work. Why you would open a bank account? So when people become members of Docomomo US, they can select being a member of Docomomo International, and they can also select becoming a member of a local chapter. Docomomo US maintains full-time staff, including myself, and we process all of that money. We send the money off to Docomomo International for those dues payments, and then we remit money back to the chapter. So your 10 members, half of the dues that they pay would come back to your organization, which is why you'll need to open a bank account, and also the reasons for maintaining the appropriate federal and state operating procedures, and to become a 501c3. The 501c3 definitely takes at least a year, and that is why you would be given provisional status. You do not need to wait until that has been granted by the federal government, but it should be something that you're working to achieve. And then lastly, chapters are expected to participate in all of our programs, including Tour Day. The chapter forum is a gathering that we have during the National Symposium, where we get around together in that big table, like I was talking during Docomomo International's events. We also do that during our own chapter meeting. And then participating in our annual theme and other national initiatives. So that's really what it takes. Hopefully that outline was fairly clear. And so Michelle, that's it for my part of the presentation. Will you hand it over to Allison and Hannah?
Yes, we're gonna go to Allison now, who's gonna talk about her experience helping to start and keeping up an engaged Hawaii chapter. So let's see if we can pull up Allison on the video here. Allison, are you?
Yes, I
Okay.
am here. And if you could pop to the first slide when you have a moment.
Oh,
I know
is
you're
this not-
still getting everybody set up.
Sorry about that. I thought we were on the first one. There you go.
No problem, thank you.
just-
Thank you. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just going to, I just have to stop the share for 1 second. I'm going to spotlight you so that people can see you while you're talking.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. That's the problem. Okay. I think you just have to start your video. There you go.
There we go. And okay, and then I can see the slides starting to come up. Thank you so much, Liz and Michelle, and Bob, for having Hawaii be part of this discussion for starting a Docomomo chapter. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we founded the Docomomo Hawaii chapter. And we can just jump right into the first slide with our volunteers. So we started our chapter in 2013. We had a really great group of diverse and passionate volunteers who were really interested in starting a chapter together. Everybody had a variety of backgrounds. We also had members who spanned a wide age range. So this was really good in terms of technological capabilities, time availability, as well as other resources and access to those resources. We have a lot of doers in the group with a core group of people who have been on the board ever since its founding, but a constant mix of fresh people on the board kind of helps keep us feeling youthful. I think, as Bob kind of alluded to, they help us execute new ideas, keep our events going, and keep everything feeling very fresh and interesting. Next slide, please. So if any of you joined us for the 2019 Symposium, you probably saw some of these buildings in and around Honolulu. We just have a few examples of Hawaii's architecture here. And one of the early things that we did as a chapter is that we started to identify our favorite mid-century buildings and to see what makes our chapter special. Liz mentioned this earlier, and this was a really fun exercise for all of us that kind of helped us craft our chapter's identity, also within the context of the broader US organization. We also were really lucky because the firm that I happen to work for now had done a modernism context study just a couple years before the chapter was founded. And so this kind of provided a little bit of a jumping off point for those discussions to happen. There was a lot of support among the architecture and design community where these talks were starting to happen. So we kind of managed to jump onto this at a really good time with the kind of energy that was happening in Hawaii. And Hawaii is also unique because we have what is called the coconut wireless, where word of mouth really goes far. So we utilized that, and we have been utilizing that not only with our advocacy efforts, but just to kind of get the word out there with activities and outreach. On the next slide are a few ideas for educational activities and fun activities that we started doing as we wanted to get people involved as a young chapter. We were focused on doing things that were interesting and accessible, and this really helped us grow our base from the start and kind of let us advocate for a variety of buildings in a really fun way. So I just wanted to share a few ideas of what we did with you guys. We did a mid-century scavenger hunt at the largest shopping center that we have in Honolulu. You wouldn't know to look at it today, but it was built in 1959, and there are a lot of little clues still there from the original mall. So we did that. That had a really good turnout, and we partnered with Design Within Reach at that time as well. They were located at the mall. This image that you see on your bottom right hand corner, this is an image from our Makiki Modern tour. So we did some, meet and greets. We did walking tours. We did photo excursions that were kind of combined with walking tours, and we called these photo doco. So these events were a way for us to not only collect documentation, but also to build our digital knowledge base in Hawaii. And we are continuing to use that with our website and materials library. We also partnered with real estate agents for exclusive mid-century open house events. And we tried to hold a lot of our events at kind of cool and unique places to kind of give people an inside look at certain architectural venues. And this was something that worked really well for us. I think each chapter will have their own identity depending on your resources and your members. My recommendation from our experience is just to try anything and be open and get that candid feedback from your board and from your members on what works and what doesn't. We were also very creative on little to no budget. Most of our efforts, I will say, have been focused on Oahu. We have over the years also tried to broaden our outreach a little bit to other islands. So that's kind of come by way of tour day or other documentation efforts, which have been a little bit more manageable, especially versus like having in-person meetings with members from other islands. Okay, on the next slide, we have one of our foremost activities that we've done throughout the years is called Talk Story. And this is something that's very unique and ingrained to Hawaii. It kind of gives us a space to share stories, to listen to other people, and Talk Story is often something that's done across multiple generations. So it's a very casual, open format. people a lot of times develop friendships or relationships because you get to know somebody and kind of like learn about their lives. So we utilize this format with architects and designers and engineers who were practicing during the mid-century. We had a lot of people who were really interested to just know more about what was happening, what the design field was like, design intent behind some of the buildings that we all see and love. And so we made these events about once a month. They were free to attend. Most of our speakers were architects, but we also had brand designers, model makers, artists, and engineers. And so we really tried to open it up to these discussions and kind of get that broad, rich discussion about what it was like to be in Hawaii at the time. And over the years, we've also, this has also become one of our main efforts to document the mid-century movement. So we have also been working to record some of these with the speaker's permission. And those are kind of something that we are transcribing what we've been doing during some of the downtime during COVID. On next slide, Michelle, thank you. We have also had our share of challenges as a young chapter, but I will say some of our greatest accomplishments have also just occurred from us being very naive about what it would take to to undertake some of these projects. One of our projects was the Enomoto labor murals, and we actually had huge challenges with this project because we had to fundraise a lot of money in a short period of time. We needed to find a place to store the artwork. This is one example right here, and it was the largest panel, one of a set of 5. They were several hundred pounds each, so they were quite large. But not only did we attempt to do this, when the bank that these murals were originally designed for, they decided to close their doors before Christmas. So we had to figure out how to get it out of the bank before it got sold. And we actually did this during the holiday season. So it was definitely a very fun undertaking in the end. We learned a lot about cleaning, conservation, design and installation. And in the end, I will say it was all very worthwhile because these pieces of artwork are such an important resource to Hawaii. And so we were really happy that we were able to find a good home for them. Technology is also one of our other ongoing challenges, which leads me to the next slide. I would recommend that you use all of your resources as a chapter, or what we like to call all of the crayons in our box. So we have several board members who have all given a lot of themselves and their time over the years. We also have tapped everybody's professional connections for events, for advice and logistics. We also have had very good luck, and we've been very fortunate to have some donated services through these connections. And we've partnered with a lot of like-minded missions. That has been really critical to our success. We've partnered with design firms, commercial entities, such as like Design Within Reach, who have similar, mid-century goals and sort of mid-century, I guess the mid-century vibe. Sorry, I'm lost my train of thought there for a minute. But we've also partnered with nonprofits in Hawaii, like Historic Hawaii Foundation. Those have been a really great resource to us. And then also anybody who was really interested in mid-century architecture in Hawaii. And we've really tried to maintain an open atmosphere for those kinds of partnerships to happen. As we started getting established as a chapter, we also worked with Docomomo US to find out what was needed, and the national network was really important to us. Docomomo US helped provide a lot of support as we got off the ground, and the Symposium is kind of where all of this came together a couple of years ago. The picture on the right side is from the symposium, and you can kind of see on the background, we featured a lot of our sponsors and partners and speakers who were able to take part of that with us. And a lot of that came from building those relationships over time. The last slide I have is just real quick, and it just kind of touches on some of our outreach strategies. We, like I mentioned, had a lot of word of mouth connections and established newsletter, utilized social media, and we also participated in industry events, which I think really helped expose Docomomo as an organization in Hawaii, and kind of gave us a little bit more of a professional connection within the industry. So we thank you so much for having us as part of this talk. And I think I'm going to hand this over now to Hannah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Allison. We're going to, Hannah, you're going to share your screen?
Yes, I'm going to do that right now.
Great, thank you. And I just want to say real quick, we are a little bit behind on time, but Hannah, you have about 10 minutes, I think. And then if people can stay for questions afterwards, we'll still do questions. But if you can't stay, you could always still just email us afterwards, and we'll answer any questions and work with you as you get started with the chapter. And Hannah, I think if you click, there's a full screen button, because it's just showing.
Oh, are you not seeing
around
my
it right
screen
now?
right now? Okay. Sorry, it looks like it is from.
Oh, okay. If it's not, it's no big deal.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
Let me figure this out. Sorry, everyone. And I'll try to be relatively quick with my presentation, because I think the Q&A is going to be super interesting for everyone. Okay, how does that look?
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much, Michelle. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. I think this is a really great event that Docomomo US is putting on. So hopefully we can provide some insight to everyone. As was already mentioned, I am the president of the Northern California chapter, and I'm based here in San Francisco. Our chapter, I would say, is based in San Francisco. Before COVID, when we were having in-person meetings, they were generally hosted in San Francisco, but our board members live throughout the San Francisco Bay Area, and we have members throughout Northern California. So right now we have a board of 12 members, which is a pretty big board. It's grown a little bit in the last couple of years, but I think that's been successful for us. We have 4 officers within that board, so president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and we have about 60 current chapter members, and we have newsletter subscribers numbering over 700 right now, which is great. And we are active on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and we have a website. So if you guys haven't seen our website, I'd encourage you to check it out as well. And of course, we are listed on the Docomomo US website as well. But this website has been pretty helpful for us to be able to post and share our local articles and news events, and make sure that people are kind of like up to speed on what's going on in Northern California Docomomo chapter. And it's kind of a nice archive of our previous events. So it's kind of fun to look back and see what we've been up to over the past several years. a little bit of this was mentioned before. I think Docomomo Northern California, or NOCA as we call ourselves, is one of the oldest official chapters of Docomomo US. I had a chance to talk to Chandler McCoy a few weeks ago, who was one of our founding members. I've only been involved in the chapter for a couple years, so I wasn't around when our chapter was founded, so I got a little bit of history from him, which was fun. The chapter was founded in 1995 when a kind of group of friends and colleagues went to an exhibit at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art on William Worcester, who's a really important local modernist architect. And they kind of, during dinner afterwards, were like, we should form a Docomomo chapter. And so that's kind of how it got started. And they attended the Preserving the Recent Past conferences. And I think it was after the Chicago one or at the Chicago one. I could be getting this wrong. It might have been PRP 1. The San Francisco group kind of met up with the people who were involved in Docomomo, early Docomomo US in New York City, and discussed kind of formalizing these series of chapters under the Docomomo US umbrella. And I think it was in the 90s, we were incorporated as a nonprofit and have had that status since. In 2004, we hosted what I guess used to be called the Docomomo's annual like face-to-face meeting, which was a meeting of Docomomo members and chapter members. But that was before the Docomomo US Symposium was initiated. And I am so impressed by the Hawaii chapter and all the other chapters who have hosted the Docomomo US Symposiums with the US organization, because they are such an incredible amount of work, I think, but so fun. So hopefully folks get to attend the virtual one coming up and future in-person ones. We had, an advocacy kind of challenge that helped sort of coalesce our group early on. This is a fight in the late 90s to save this Daphne Funeral Home in San Francisco, a project by A. Quincy Jones, pretty well-known architect here in California. Unfortunately, that advocacy fight did not go as we hoped, and the building was demolished. But in the late 90s, advocating for modernism was still quite a challenge, and getting people excited and rallied really helped form our chapter and kind of help increase interest in preserving modernism. So that was definitely one of the key moments in our chapter's early history. We've had a lot of successes since then, including a lot of different event types and different programs that we've initiated. So we've done a ton of different walking and driving tours, which are always super fun and very well attended. I think that those are always really enjoyable for people. And we have done them throughout the Bay Area. We've done several different ones in different neighborhoods in San Francisco. We've done tours in Oakland, San Jose. Our most recent tour day event was virtual because of COVID, and we took that opportunity to tour a few sites from as far south as Santa Cruz and as far north as Sea Ranch. So really spanned the geographic area of Northern California, which was great. And this photo at the bottom is from our last in-person tour that we were able to have, which was in Chinatown in San Francisco, which was really fun. Some other event types that we've done over the years that have also been really great have been film screenings. We've done some lectures over the years. We've done a few different kind of meetups or group tours at museum exhibits that were related to modernism. We did what we called the mostly mid-century garage sale one year, which was a fun event. As I mentioned, we've done a number of virtual events and tours in the past year. And we've also done a number of partnerships with other organizations, usually in the form of walking tours, and those have been really successful. We've partnered with the Cultural Landscape Foundation, San Francisco Design Week, and a couple of other organizations. And those have been really great ways to kind of increase our visibility and get new members, because we're kind of tapping into the membership and newsletter subscription kind of network of those organizations. And they're aligned design or history preservation kind of organization. So that's always been a good strategy, I think. Another program that we started a few years ago was a travel grant for students and emerging scholars to be able to attend the National Symposium. It can be kind of a steep cost for students to travel and pay for registration and stuff. So we started that grant program. So we had students who attended the symposium in Columbus, Indiana, as well as in Hawaii. And we've opened up a few grants this year for the virtual symposium, and we're still accepting applications. So if anyone knows of a student or emerging scholar who should apply, please forward that info. We've also done a number of different social media campaigns like Instagram takeovers. We did like a poll for people to vote on their favorite 1970s buildings last year, when the advocacy theme was the 1970s turned 50. And we, out of that initiative, we also added, I think, 6 new 1970s era buildings to the Docomomo register. I mentioned our website. We also have a newsletter that we send out kind of semi-regularly with articles or notices about our events, and also share other events that are related to modernism and whatnot. We've also recently been getting charitable donations through a program called Benevity. I don't know how applicable this is to everyone, but it's one of these programs where if you work somewhere that will like match your time, volunteer time, they match funds to go to nonprofit organizations. So we've been getting money through that. Some of our members, their companies do these matching donations, which is cool. And just a sort of general reminder that it's always good to tap into whatever resources you happen to have through your board or through your membership. I don't think I mentioned this upper map image is a map that we made of 1970s modern and postmodern resources around Northern California. That was a really fun project that we launched last year and turned out to be a really good project to work on while a lot of us were on lockdown, because it was mostly online research and then going out by ourselves to take photos. So it was a good project. I think that we've touched on some of the challenges of starting and maintaining a board, but I think all of these can be looked at as opportunities as well. You know, we're an all volunteer board, which can be challenging in terms of time, but everyone's very passionate and very excited to be part of the board. So we have had good engagement. We often kind of look to broaden our membership, and usually doing that through events, I think, is the best way. And especially, as I mentioned, kind of events that might be tied to other organizations. We do have a large geographic area. Liz kind of mentioned the challenges of that. So our events are pretty San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley focused, but we've been able to branch out more with virtual events, which is great. And I won't get into every single one of these because I know we're a little short on time, and I'll just flip to the next one. Like I said, most of these things are actually opportunities. You know, we've had virtual events reaching wider audiences. We've done lots of collaborations with other local organizations, which can be really positive and rewarding experiences. We're looking at new fun ideas all the time, and it's great to see what Hawaii is doing, to see what kind of cool things they've been working on. And I think that one of the things that I'll just end on is one of the great things about being an organization that has Docomomo US as our kind of like parent umbrella organization is that we can lean on them for different advocacy issues if we need to get the word out on something. They also have lots of good branding and like logos and stuff that we can use on our social media, which is awesome. And the annual advocacy theme has been a great way for us to kind of organize and focus our efforts, and also to kind of have a theme around which to partner with different people. So that's been really, really fantastic. And so I think that's been, especially in the past couple years under Liz's leadership, a lot of those things have really come to fruition in a great way. So we've been like learning and growing over the last, I guess it's 20 some years, and Docomomo US has as well. So I think there's always new and fun things that we are all doing together, which is great. And I want to move on to questions and answers because I'm sure that there will be lots of them. So thanks everyone for letting me chat, and yeah, curious to see what people have to say.
Thank you so much, Hannah. That was great. And yeah, we still have quite a few people on the call. So I'm gonna, Allison, you could start on your video too. And we have some questions in the chat. If anyone else has questions that they want to put in the chat, we can, I can ask them. Liz, I don't know if it's okay with you, like other people can, if you don't have too much background noise, you can unmute or start your video and we can have kind of a conversation and discussion about chapters. But thank you everyone again for coming. I see some people have to go, and that's fine. Go ahead, Liz.
I was just gonna say, yeah, feel free, to put on your video and your camera if you're comfortable, and speak your question. I would just say, if you do have a question, just raise your hand so that we can call on you. And you can raise your hand by clicking the button at the bottom that says reactions, and then there's a hand raise. So I answered, there was one question about student engagement that I answered, but Richard Jarvis had a great question about what sort of name should a potential chapter use before actually becoming a chapter. That's a great question. And Michelle, I don't know if you give people specific guidance, but my sort of off the cuff is you would be able to say that a group of people looking to start a Docomomo chapter is having a meeting, or I don't know if Colorado called themselves Docomomo Colorado in their organizing meeting announcements.
I'm not sure if they really actually called themselves that. It's just, you're right. What you said is, what we say to people if you're announcing a meeting or like a get together of interested people, we just say, it's a general interest meeting for forming a Docomomo US chapter. I can look it up and share some examples. There's a group in South Carolina that's had a bunch of meetings, and that's what they've said is just, a general interest meeting for a Docomomo US South Carolina chapter. So not actually specifically calling themselves that, but it did also make me think about it. Like if people do want to, so generally what the chapters have done is they have not really started any official social media accounts or websites or anything like that until we give you the provisional status, because we just don't want to confuse anybody into thinking that there is an actual chapter in existence if there's not yet. So that helps.
Michelle is a rock star at social media, so just tell her what you want to write and she'll put it up.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's a good point. Thank you, Liz. But we're happy to share any announcements. And we can also, look and see, you know, what members we have in our database already and try to, you know, get you in touch with those people. So if there's, you know, if you're in, you know, Nevada or something like that, we can say, how many other members do we have in Nevada? And here's their contact info, as well as sharing on our different social media accounts and things like that. And the chapters do have on our website, a lot of the chapter, we have a listing for all chapters on our website, and we can create events for you and things like that on our website. So if you don't have a website yet, that's totally fine, because that can be a really complicated thing to get started. I think we have, is there any more questions besides that? Did anyone else have any questions about anything that we went over? Everyone ready to start a chapter?
I think the, you know, notwithstanding the issues of creating a 501c3 and doing the, you know, the business related elements, you know, the challenge is the geographics, how big to go. I think it really just depends on the state. And then just getting people together. Sometimes I always think back to our Philadelphia chapter, who was starting, and I believe it was started by a series of professional architects, who were not necessarily affiliated with any of the schools in Philadelphia. And so we were able to, you know, put people together and say, all right, you're interested in a chapter, you're interested in a chapter. You don't know each other, but you should. And we were able to get those people in a room together. And although we haven't announced it, I do believe we will be hosting our national symposium next year in Philadelphia.
Hopefully in person.
Hopefully in person.
I just wanted to say one other thing too. Somebody asked about how can students get involved, and Liz, you had given them some answers, but then I also just wanted to say too, we do have a student level membership. So they can join at like a very reduced rate. So hopefully that they can participate just by being a member, just like everyone else as well. And I think a lot of our chapters do involve, I think it's great, like Liz was saying, to, you know, involve partners and have an academic program. That's a great place to start as a resource of where to find people who are interested in participating.
I also know that the chapters have included students in the formation process and even have allowed students to be on their board of directors. So, you know, you could have a board of 6 to 8, and one of those spots is a student spot. It's a great way to give some, you know, professional development to that young person, and probably help with some of the social media elements. I know, you know, the younger generations enjoy the social media almost somewhat more than I do anymore. It feels like just so much. But another good way of, and I loved, Allison, what you were saying about your talks of that they're multi-generational. And I think that's, you know, that's one of the wonderful elements of Docomomo, especially when we can get together, is that you have senior practitioners, as well as people, you know, who are still in school, and that we all get together over our, you know, our passions over modern architecture.
Liz, DeJuro is asking if there are separate student chapters within a university. I don't think we have any examples of that, but I don't know, something maybe we could consider. I'm not sure.
It's a good, yeah, it's a good suggestion.
Yeah. Um,
And Allison, we all miss being with you all in Hawaii.
Guys, everybody is welcome anytime.
I was joking around about the Chicago Symposium. Since it's virtual, I said, well, I'm going to go back to Hawaii
And take it from here.
and take it from there.
Well, I think we're all looking forward to also participating in the Chicago Symposium virtually.
Yeah.
we're definitely looking forward to it. I think Eric has go ahead, Eric. Did you want to
Hi,
ask
I
something?
was just curious if you have a list of the most recent chapters that have opened. You mentioned Colorado, and I was curious about how old Minnesota is. I'm from Milwaukee. We're thinking about opening a chapter in Wisconsin. And so I'd love to talk to 2 or 3 or 4 of the newest chapters about, their experiences, a little bit like Allison has done.
I don't know. Liz, do you know when Minnesota was formed? I've been here since 2019, and Colorado is the only one that we've added since then. I'm not sure.
I think Minnesota was maybe like 2012. Minnesota hosted the symposium in 2015, or yeah, 2015. But yeah, that would be great. I know we've talked to people in Milwaukee about Michelle. It was the building that we were advocating for.
The Forest Home Library.
Yes.
Yes, the library.
Yeah, so
And I
Kelsey,
know. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, my colleague Kelsey Keene, who was who was here earlier, she and I were spearheading that, and not successfully, unfortunately. But it's been a kind of launchpad for us to think about how a Docomomo chapter could help in the preservation of other buildings that are worthwhile in the city. So we've got some initiative, that was created by the advocacy of the Forest Home Library, and we have the Milwaukee Preservation Alliance, which is a broader preservation group, which is excited about collaborating. So I think we have a lot of the elements that are necessary to take next steps, but I would like to talk to people. So should I just see who the officers are in Colorado and kind of reach out to them myself, or are there suggestions that you might have?
Send us an email to the info@Docomomo, and I will get you on an email with a bunch of,
Great.
if that's what we can see. I can talk to Liz about it, see if that's like the best way. It might be good to talk to some Colorado people, but like you were saying, maybe like Minnesota and maybe the Chicago chapter too, because they're right nearby you guys.
Yeah.
And I think technically right now, if you are in Wisconsin, like you can be affiliated with the Chicago chapter.
We talked a little bit about that with them when we were doing the advocacy around the Forest Home Library. And so we're considering that. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. And I think we'll definitely use Chicago as a resource either way.
Yeah, send an email and we'll get you in touch. And that it's really it's been great to have Jeremy, I think is his name,
exactly.
come in at Milwaukee,
Jeremy
because he really is very aware of a lot of the modern resources, and very like always including them. I see in a lot of the things that they're doing. So that's really great to see.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Well, thanks very much for that. Appreciate your help, and I'll be in touch via email.
Thanks.
Thanks, Eric. Well, we're at 6:15, Michelle.
Yep.
Any other final questions or thoughts? How many people are starting a Docomomo chapter? Eric is good. He's got 2 hands.
Hopefully it doesn't take demolishing a modernist building to start a Docomomo chapter, but I think, Eric, we can relate to the fact that does really get the fire under everyone. So don't let that go to waste.
No, not at all. In fact, we convinced the developer to allow us to go in and take HABs photographs, and we 3D scanned the building. So we'll at least make a submission to HABs, and it'll turn out to be a positive aspect of this in the end. Yeah.
Yeah, and that you're not going to shy away. I mean, we've had chapters that have folded after, you know, an advocacy issue where they were trying to save something. And then once they're not successful and the building comes down, which was the case of our New Orleans chapter, they're still sort of there, but once the building went down, they really, you know, they lost their wind. So I like the fact that you're not afraid of adversity. You know, we do lose, unfortunately, often, but you can't win if you're not in the fight.
Right. And you know, there's a certain aspect, man, this sounds a little strange, but there's a certain aspect to martyrdom, which is powerful. You know, when people see that building is gone and they remember it, when it's fresh in their minds, if you have good documentation, good photographs, we're going to do a little exhibit at the Mitchell Park Domes, which is also a threatened building on the Forest Home Library. So, you know, these things start to connect people. Honestly, the Forest Home Library loss was just a lack of awareness. People do not have mid-century buildings on their radar screen in Milwaukee. So if nothing else, we'll change that hopefully as quickly as we can.
And it's always a good reminder for us, and I'm talking about how we've sort of moved on from mid-century nationally and really trying to fight for 70s and 80s architecture now.
Yeah.
Is that there is still a core in this country that do not see the significance of mid-century property still. Yeah. Back to basics.
Real quick before we all sign off, but I just wanted to offer too, if there's anything that Docomomo Hawaii can help with to any like prospective chapters or just like needing feedback or ideas or anything. Our board is awesome. And I think when we were getting started, we also talked to NOCA and some of the West Coast chapters, and everybody was also very, very helpful and supportive to us. So we definitely want to be a part of moving that forward. So if there's anything that we can do or answer any questions, just feel free to reach out to us via our website or docomomohawaii@gmail.com or via US.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation, Allison. It was excellent, and I will definitely be reaching out. Appreciate that.
Sure.
And they have the best member party, holiday party at the end of the year. So
okay, I'll see you. Hopefully it's in January. I'll be there, Allison.
Sounds good. We'll look forward to having you.
all right, well, I think we're good to wrap, Michelle.
All right, sounds good. Thank you again, everyone, for coming, and please feel free to reach out to us. We'll also send out an email to everyone who attended with all the wrap-up information. So thanks again, and good luck with starting chapters.
And
Have a good rest
Thank
of
you.
your day.
Hannah. Thanks, Hannah. Thanks, Allison. Thanks,
Yes,
Bob.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.